Florida State added another piece to the 2023 recruiting class in Dylan Brown Turner. AB, tell me more about this kid.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So Dylan Brown Turner, he is a newer recruit prospect for the 2023 class. Yes, the 23 class that still goes on. I know everybody expects that to be over in December, but it does continue into February still. So he's out of South Oak Cliff High School, which is a big time program down in Texas. Not one that Florida State typically recruits quite a bit, but they dipped their toes into the Texas waters and came out with a 3-star prospect. As you can see, an 84 overall in the composite, an 82 rated by 24/7 Sports, the number 1,498 national prospect. They were able to flip him from North Texas, the Mean Green, the Fighting Mean Greeners. Brendan, you got any backstory?
It's a recruitment that emerged pretty late in the process. Not a whole lot of guys signed in February anymore. But Dylan Brown Turner is going to fall into that. He'll be the only Florida State player we expect to sign in February, and really a name that kind of emerged on FSU's board strongly. I think got offered in late December, so after the early signing period, and that was an offer to recruit basically, which means here's an offer. Let's get to know each other a little bit more, to talk more, show you that we're serious because he was already committed, as mentioned earlier, to North Texas, and then eventually to get him on campus for an official visit, which was this past weekend. That was the icing on the cake for FSU, pushed it over the top for Dylan Brown Turner. Not a huge surprise that he would pick FSU over North Texas, right? And it's just a totally different tier of program, which is, I think, part of the reason why the message board is fairly antsy these days. He didn't have a whole lot of other offers to pick from other than North Texas. But I will say on FSU's end, what's interesting, this is the third linebacker in this class that they got. I think they looked at the numbers, the scholarship-wise, the way things worked out, who they got, who they didn't get at the end of the 2023 cycle, the early signing period, I should say, part of the cycle. They said, hey, we have room for one more. This is a guy who was available. And I like some of the things about him on film. Not a great athlete, we're going to get into it, but very productive, very mature. He's overcome adversity, overcame a leg injury. He had 120 tackles this past season. His junior year, in which he had the leg injury, he was averaging over 10 tackles a game before that injury knocked him out for the final 6 or 7 games. So there's a lot to like about him on paper. And areas of concern as well, but ultimately FSU gets him into campus this past weekend. I think that's big, guys, because you're able to do a physical then. You can make sure the knee's okay, no long-term damage there from last year's injury, and get measurables. So he was a little bit bigger than they thought. He's about 210 or so. So a little bit more than what he was listed at in high school at like 200 pounds. So yeah, that was kind of the backstory to him. FSU basically had some room to add to this class, and they found a guy who they thought had some upside. That's Dylan Brown Turner.
All right. Well, let's let his film kind of tell the rest of his story here. So let's move him here. So Dylan Brown Turner, 6'1" is what he's listed at.
I think he may have came in at a touch under, so 6 foot to 6'1", probably 6'6.5".
Okay, and so that's a kind of normal height for. I mean, we're looking at a Mike and Will linebacker, which are kind of interchangeable in Fuller's system. I think Tatum Bethune is about 6 foot tall, so that's nothing crazy there.
He did have some comparisons to Kalen DeLoach. The staff compare him. I think physically, you kind of see some of that. He's built.
Yeah, he's pretty long levered.
So if we can go back to that last play, is one of the ones I like the most, Kev. And maybe I talked a little bit had a difference of opinions of lateral mobility. When I'm talking about it, like watch how he moves sideways there to get in position. He does that a lot in his film. It's an underrated aspect to playing linebacker, to be able to move in these tight phone booths, have bouncy feet, and get square. He does that consistently well, where he diagnoses and gets in position to make a play laterally.
Yeah, this is a nice play here. He sees, well, they're pulling this guard, so his gap, the gap he was responsible for, kind of disappears. So now he's got to kind of rock back towards the middle of the line where they're looking to add a gap. So he does a good job of navigating some traffic and making the play in the backfield.
He's been coached really well. He diagnoses space and gets to space very clean. He sees a picture very clear. You can tell he's been coached at a high level at his school. And that's important because he's going to come in and understand reading keys, those are some of the areas right there where I get concerned. He's stuck a little bit. He doesn't open and flip his hips very well. He does redirect nice and come downhill and make a play on a guy already kind of being tackled. I don't know. I question the athleticism a little bit to how high the level of an athlete he is.
Yeah,
he does play forward. He is able to kind of take guys on here. You see, he does have violent hands. He gets in a nice shedding position, a good block destruction position. Run that back one more time. So he should lead this with his left foot. Yep. See, this kid's coached really well. He gets in a nice position there. His left foot split in the crotch, and he strikes this on an upward blow. That's really clean.
This is I guess it's a folding tight end that he's taken on here. So a little bit of a bigger body. He does a good job blowing it up.
Hello.
Ooh, data specialist.
Yeah, lots of data there. So he blows it up, and it forces this running back kind of spill. So, yeah, I think we all agree that, I mean, what we're seeing is a guy that kind of navigates traffic all right and seems pretty well coached. So physical abilities is something that we've kind of questioned top end on him. And where are you guys seeing kind of the strengths and the weaknesses here?
As far as limitations athletically, he doesn't explode at any point. Like there's nothing there where you look at him athletically and say, well, that was a special movement, whether it's closing speed or AB mentioned like the flip of the hips earlier. It's a lot of decent stuff there. But then you combine that, he's not a thumper. He's not putting out any big time level hits, which isn't essential in today's game. But at this level of football, like you'd be hopeful that a Power 5 high end, like top 10 program linebacker recruit would be knocking some people out and being super physical. So I do think there seems to be a presented level of upside that is capped off, which I think is some of the consternation for the fan base.
I think he lost.
I wonder what he is with another 15 pounds on.
Someone lost his shoe.
That's his.
He looks a little narrow. He looks a little lean here. I mean, he kind of looks like a safety runner right out there.
He does, and
he's safety size. He's safety size.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I wonder what he's going to look like when he adds some bulk to his frame. I mean, he's violent. He's physical.
He has long arms. I haven't seen him in person. I didn't see him this weekend, so I don't know what he's going to, what the frame looks like. But the arms look pretty lengthy, like where you could assume if that applies to his.
Like if you told me that was Jarvis Brownlee playing right now, I wouldn't tell you were lying.
He is kind of built like Jarvis Brownlee with the long arms, and
it's weird.
About 6 foot, 200 pounds.
He made the tackle guys easy there.
So maybe, I mean,
too soon.
I would like to see him kind of flip his hips a little bit. We haven't really seen any coverage snaps. He clearly has the ability to navigate in the box, but I mean, playing linebackers a little bit more than that.
He just had the one interception at the very beginning, but that's it, Kev. Yeah, that's it. And for a guy who's only 200 to 210 pounds, you would hope that's a lot of space would be on film.
So I think the staff has allowed us to give them some trust in this take. I think he's probably adequately ranked in the 247 system, but there are some tools and some upside to him that you can be excited about.
Go ahead, AB. Sorry.
I wonder if he's when I was looking at him earlier and kind of thinking about him in my head, I was thinking this is like a low floor, low ceiling type guy, but I almost feel like as well as he's been coached, if he can put some weight on, he might be a little bit higher floor than I originally was giving him credit for, which is valuable. There's value to that. He's going to be able to come in and play special teams. We know how much they value special teams. It's a kid that's probably going to be able to come in not year one, but probably year two, play on all your special teams units, be a floor guy for your linebacker room. You're not going to have that big fall off where right now, if you had to play Steven Dix, I think you're kind of falling off the face of the earth, so to speak, in your linebacking room. This young man doesn't strike me as that type because he's going to understand the game. He's going to understand where he's supposed to be. He's been really well coached, and you see that on film. But he's going to bring that to the room. So I think his floor is maybe a little bit higher than I was previously giving him credit for. I don't quite see the ceiling there, and that's not a knock on him. because I don't know if we've seen what he can be. I'd like to see what kind of weight he can put on, how wide his shoulders really are, how big he can get for the position.
I would imagine that they got that information at the official visit, at least to kind of like Josh Storms, the strength and conditioning coach, is involved
Yeah.
with like he'll take you just eyeball, like you could tell, oh, I can put weight on this kid. He's been
Yeah.
doing this long enough now to where he knows that. What we don't know is some of the athletic profile of
Mhm.
he's not a guy who came to camp and got a GPS on him and you can tell his burst and his max threshold mile per hour.
Right.
I don't know that the coaching staff got to see him play a high school game in person. So I do think, like, based on what we're seeing with the film, I'm in agreement with you, AB, where I don't think the floor is like too low with him, based on what we're seeing. Like, I think if it doesn't work out at Florida State, I think point to remember, you don't have to keep him forever. That's not how it
Mhm.
works anymore, guys.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work and he does not look like a Power 5 caliber player, tell him that, and hopefully he will. He's a kid from Texas. Will maybe move on somewhere else to greener pastures, maybe. See what I did there? Mean green. But maybe more so with like what you're trying to evaluate with him. I don't think that there will be this precipitous drop off to where if he does have to transfer down, it would be down to like the FCS level. I don't think that's what we're looking at with him. Like, so yeah, you're projecting of what you're going to be able to do with him, and I was going to look a year and a half, 2 years removed from the injury rather than 7 months or so. So the upside to me is a question that's not super clear evident, but I do think I'm with you, AB, that the floor is not all that low. I think the floor is actually fairly high here, which gives me some level of comfort with this roll of the dice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I agree with you guys. The IQ that he displays, at least as someone that can potentially come off the bench, is not really something FSU has had in a few years. So, like having that third or fourth linebacker that can come in and be serviceable. FSU's had some athletes they could put there, but kids that you could really trust to be in the right gap, right place, just haven't been present. So to me, that's hopefully kind of what they're seeing and evaluating with him.
You guys mentioned Steven Dix Jr. earlier, like that. To your point, like that's a perfect example of someone 2 preseasons ago. I think their fear was realized. It's like, oh, he hasn't gotten better from freshman year to year 2 in terms of reading things and reacting,
Yeah.
and to the point where they're like, hey, we can't play him this year, and he got jumped by DJ Lundy. So, and that was more than I know. We talked about his mobility and the ability to turn and run. With Steven Dix as a sophomore, he didn't play because they didn't trust him to be in the right gaps consistently. Like that is an important part of playing linebacker.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that does it for us here. So join us back. We do these film reviews of basically every FSU commit. Really try to dive deep into what we see out of their highlights and kind of what they can bring to Florida State and their time here. So thanks for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Go over to X's and Knowles, like and subscribe over there, and also check out more great stuff. Brandon is part of an amazing crew at 247 that has all the scoops for recruiting. So make sure you go over there, subscribe there. You can hear more of our thoughts on basically anybody Florida State adjacent, and we'll see you soon.